The night the heart monitor flatlined for 3 seconds, the entire operating room froze, not because a patient was dying, but because a nurse was. Blood stained the pale blue floor tiles beneath the surgical lights, and no one could quite process how a routine post-op recovery had turned into a nightmare. By morning, whispers would spread through the hospital halls. By nightfall, helicopters would circle the roof. And within 24 hours, black SUVs with tinted windows would seal the building as if it were a crime scene of national importance. Maya Alvarez had survived worse days than this. Raised by a single mother who cleaned offices at night, she learned early that strength often wore a quiet face. Nursing wasn't just a job for her, it was a promise she made to herself after her father died waiting for care he never received. She worked double shifts without complaint, remembered patients' favorite songs, and spoke gently even when her feet screamed with exhaustion. That night, she was assigned to assist in a high-profile surgery, a donor transplant for a billionaire board member whose influence practically owned the hospital. The surgery itself went smoothly. Applause would have followed if the room allowed it. As the patient was wheeled to recovery, Maya stayed behind to finish charting. That was when the door slammed open. Ethan Crow, the hospital's CEO, stormed in like a man chased by ghosts. His reputation was legendary: brilliant fundraiser, ruthless executive, untouchable power broker. The board adored him, the press feared him, nurses avoided him. When he spoke, people listened. When he shouted, people vanished. "What did you do?" he demanded, eyes wild, voice shaking with a fury that felt rehearsed and yet dangerously real. Maya stood, confused. "Sir, the surgery was successful. The patient is stable. You compromised the sequence," he snapped, jabbing a finger toward the surgical tray. "If anything goes wrong, anything, it's on you." Maya tried to explain, but he wasn't listening. Words collided with rage, then rage turned physical. No one expected it, not the way his hand closed around her throat, not the way he shoved her backward into the metal cabinet, not the sickening sound as her head struck steel. She remembered gasping for air, the lights blurring, the taste of blood, and then, nothing. When Maya didn't report for her next shift, her mother knew something was wrong. When the hospital refused to comment, suspicion turned into fear. And when a junior nurse anonymously leaked security footage showing the CEO entering the operating room alone with Maya and leaving minutes later, the internet ignited. But the real shock came the next morning. At 6:17 a.m., a convoy arrived. Men and women in dark suits stepped out, flashing credentials no one expected to see in a hospital corridor. The Pentagon had taken control of the building. Federal agents sealed entrances, shut down servers, and escorted executives into private rooms. Patients were evacuated. Phones stopped working. The hospital became silent in a way that felt heavier than chaos. Rumors flew like wildfire. Some said Maya was a whistleblower. Others claimed she was military intelligence. The truth was stranger, and far more powerful. Maya had enlisted in the army straight out of nursing school, serving as a combat medic in places most people only saw on the news. She had saved lives under fire, patched wounds with shaking hands, and learned how power could be abused when no one was watching. After her service, she returned home quietly, never speaking of medals or missions. But she never truly left the system. Her expertise had made her a consultant on emergency preparedness, classified work that required discretion, not recognition. What Ethan Crow didn't know, what he never bothered to learn, was that Maya Alvarez wasn't invisible. As she lay in a coma, machines breathing for her, her records were pulled. Flags were raised, questions were asked, and when investigators discovered that the CEO had been laundering defense contracts through hospital procurement, using surgeries as cover to move sensitive technology, everything changed. Maya hadn't just been attacked. She had been silenced. But silence, like pressure, eventually breaks. 3 days later, Maya opened her eyes. The road back was brutal. Headaches, memory gaps, nightmares that blended war zones with hospital halls. But she wasn't alone. Nurses she had mentored sat by her bed. Patients she once comforted sent letters. And when she was strong enough, federal prosecutors came, not to interrogate, but to apologize. Ethan Crow was arrested in his own office. The board resigned en masse. The hospital was rebuilt, not just with new leadership, but with new values. Transparency replaced fear. Care replaced control. Months later, Maya returned, not as a victim, but as a leader. She declined interviews, fame, and lawsuits that could have made her rich. Instead, she asked for one thing: a program to protect frontline healthcare workers from abuse, regardless of who stood on the other side of the badge or balance sheet. On her first day back, she walked past the operating rooms where it all began. The lights hummed softly, the halls smelled of antiseptic and hope. She paused, took a breath, and smiled, not because the past no longer hurt, but because it no longer owned her. Power, she had learned, doesn't come from titles or threats. It comes from standing up when it's hardest, from protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and from knowing that even in the darkest rooms, truth has a way of turning the lights back on. And sometimes, all it takes to shake an entire system is one nurse who refuses to stay silent.